Now, turning to our program, I have the distinct honor of introducing today's speaker. Mayor Cavalier Johnson took office as the acting mayor of the city of Milwaukee in late 2021 and set out immediately to build a safer city. He has prioritized violence reduction, economic development, and roadway safety. Before taking on his role as acting mayor, he served as Common Council president while representing the city's 2nd aldermanic district. In April of 2022, Mayor Johnson was elected as the 45th chief executive of the city of Milwaukee, winning with more than 70% of the vote. He is the first black mayor elected in the city and only the 4th elected mayor in the past 62 years. While President Joe Biden was in Milwaukee last week, he mentioned in his speech, "Chevy, I tell you, you're one of the best mayors, pal. You really are." I couldn't agree more. Today, the mayor will share an update on public safety, city fiscal issues, the importance of the upcoming election, and his optimism surrounding Milwaukee's future. Please give a warm Rotary welcome to Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
Good afternoon, everybody. Is it afternoon? Usually when I say good afternoon, it's like, morning time or something. Well, it's my pleasure to be back here before you at Rotary. For those of you who are keeping track, I was last here 16 months ago. Doesn't really seem like that long ago, but it was 16 months ago. And of course, in that time, a lot has changed. Milwaukee's fiscal situation is far more stable than what it was when I was reporting to you all that time ago. The city is demonstrably safer than what it was when I reported to you 16 months ago. In April, as was just mentioned, I was elected to a full term to serve as mayor of our city. I think that time was, if I can toot my own horn a little bit more impressive even when I first was elected. We had over 80% of the vote for me to be elected as mayor again. So I'm really, really appreciative to Milwaukeeans for electing me. What hasn't changed, though, in the course of that time are my priorities for city government. And for those of you who have seen me, talk a lot, I have often said that I've got no higher priority than making Milwaukee a safer city. That's been the number one thing that we've worked day in and day out on since I've been able to lead this city. And 1 week ago, we publicly shared the latest crime numbers in Milwaukee. So overall, and this is good news, serious crime in the city is down. Through the third quarter of 2024, violent crime is down 6% when compared to this time last year. As it relates to property crime, that crime category is down 3%. And most dramatically, homicides in the city of Milwaukee are down 22% from this time last year. On our report card, we unfortunately did not get all straight A's, though. I'm not here to tell you that, everything, went exceedingly well. We had some issues where we had some upticks in some areas that we're working in. We had a significant uptick in carjacking. But I can let you know that the police department is working day in and day out to build strategies to combat that. My approach as it relates to public safety, you probably have seen this as well, is a two-pillared approach. It's built on both accountability as well as prevention. Now, our police department, our prosecutors, our courts, they all play essential roles when it comes to the accountability part of our public safety strategy. I've also asked for additional help from folks that I think are in the best position to help us with public safety, because no matter how many police we hire, you can't have a police officer in every corner. You just can't. And so we need folks and families to step up and play their part in this too. And so that's why I've asked for parents to step up, to be more engaged, be more involved. I asked for preachers and teachers and friends and mentors to step up and to be more involved in the lives of young people as well. On the prevention side, we're intervening, we're mediating, and we're also directing young people to resources that can positively affect their lives. In particular, I'm proud of a program that some of you in this room have probably heard me talk about before. It's called Camp Rise. It's a sister program to our long-standing Earn and Learn Summer Youth Jobs program. And the reason that we started Camp Rise was because a couple of years ago, saw that there was an issue out in the community where some kids as young as 10 years old, were being recruited to steal cars. And I said we needed a new way to engage with those young people in Milwaukee. And so I used my sort of lived experience as a person who grew up in mentoring programs with YMCA. In fact, I still wear this green, YMCA wristband because I got started in the YMCA when I was 14 years old, and here I'll be 38 on election day of all days. So I used that lived experience to create this new program in partnership with Milwaukee Public Schools, with Governor Tony Evers, who I called up with Employ Milwaukee. And year over year, we're serving hundreds and hundreds of kids, some as young as 10. And so Milwaukee, via this program, may be the only big city in America that's doing workforce development with kids who are as young as 10 years old. So if you think about it, from the time they're 10 until the time they run through our traditional Earn and Learn Summer Youth Jobs program, we have the opportunity to touch young people in Milwaukee, to have an impact on their lives from the time they're 10 to 24 years old. That's a big thing, and I think can help to make sure that a lot of kids don't go down the wrong path in life, which none of us want that to happen in the first place. In addition to things like Camp Rise and Earn and Learn and our support for police, we're working to address the issue of reckless driving. That's when I first became mayor. The first document that I signed in that office was one that declared reckless driving a public safety crisis. And so we've got a three-pillared approach that we use to address that issue as well. They are around the issues of engineering. And if you're driving around Milwaukee, you'll see that we have physically changed many of the roadways around here to curtail the issue of reckless driving. Of course, education is another very, very important component of this. And right now we have our speeding. We can live without a campaign on billboards and on buses and in so many places all around the city. You'll see that. And then enforcement is also important. That's why this year, much like I did last year, you'll see if you look at the budget that I proposed, my executive budget for 2025, that we have allocated enough funding to have 3 classes at our police academy, which is the most classes that we possibly can produce in a single year. And each of those classes has enough funding for 65 recruits, which is the maximum number that we can produce in a single year. But we're also looking for other strategies to address the issue of reckless driving too. In fact, just recently you probably saw that the partnership in City Hall, and not just in City Hall, but in the county as well, we said we're going to zero down on reckless driving. So the new city attorney, Evan Goicke, has been helpful in making sure police write actual reckless driving tickets that charges are not reduced for expediency. And the district attorney's office will pursue criminal charges for second offenses. And I was there, as I said, the city attorney was there. Kent Laverne, who will be our next district attorney here in Milwaukee County, was there in support of this too. And I'm very, very grateful, Kent, that you were there. And with all those things, we are seeing tangible results on the ground. Through the third quarter of 2024, crash fatalities in Milwaukee, they were down 10% when compared to 2023. Speaking of strong progress, let's talk about the economy that we have here in Milwaukee. When I was last here at this podium, we have cut the ribbon on Fiserv new world headquarters in downtown Milwaukee. So Fiserv Corporation, and anybody in this room, if you got a credit card, a debit card, you likely have Fiserv technology in your pocket right now. They've got a huge office presence over in Nebraska, a huge office presence down in Georgia. Their CEO sits out east in New York, New Jersey, located in suburban Brookfield previously. They could have gone anywhere. They could have gone anywhere, but I empowered our Department of City Development to work with Fiserv, and their global headquarters is here in Milwaukee, retaining those jobs and growing new jobs right here in the city. Residents have started to move into the Couture, which we can see right across the street, the newest addition to our skyline. We symbolically broke ground on Northwestern Mutual's North Tower reconstruction, which will be now the newest addition to our skyline when it's completed. We opened Thrive on King, which is a big multi-use project at the old Schuster's building down on Martin Luther King Drive. So in each of these projects, they're big, and the city played a significant role in order to make each of them come forward. So I've got really high hopes, not just for those projects, but what's coming in the future for Milwaukee as well. When I think about the future of Milwaukee and the future of our economy, I think about tourism. Folks may not be aware of this, but in Milwaukee, in our region, like a quarter of all the visitors who come to the state of Wisconsin, they interface with this state by coming here. They spend time in our city. They come to Milwaukee. And so tourism, I think, will continue to play a large role in our economy in the future. And look, for me, like, I'm the mayor, so I get to be the biggest cheerleader, the biggest advocate for our city. And that's part of the reason why I was interested in hosting the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee this past summer. And we did it. When we did it, we proved that Milwaukee is in a position where we're ready. We're ready to host the biggest events possible, whether it's sports, entertainment, trade shows, political conventions, you name it. We can do it right here in Milwaukee, and we proved that. In fact, a number of the people who were here, the delegates from the various states, media from not just around the United States, but all around the world, I mean, they told me that they had just such an incredible time here in Milwaukee during the convention. Many of them, came and said that Milwaukee should host every single political convention from here on out, which I summarily dismissed the idea of doing that. So it was a really great opportunity to showcase Milwaukee, and one of the crown jewels of making that happen was the Baird Center, which I know Marty Brooks is in here somewhere. I am in that facility like weekly, because there's so many conventions coming to Milwaukee. There's so many good things that are happening downtown and in the city because of that investment. So Marty and crew, you guys did a fabulous job. Thank you for that. Speaking of tourism in Milwaukee, we're investing in a new cruise facility at Port Milwaukee because this city can grow the number of cruise ship tourists who get on and get off of cruise ships here. You've probably seen it. We've got some of the biggest, seafaring vessels that cruise along the Great Lakes and use Milwaukee as a turnaround city. And I want that number to grow. It's been growing the past couple of years. I want it to continue to grow. And so we're making an investment so that we continue to attract those tourists, attract those dollars, attract that spending to Milwaukee. And we're in a position, again, as a turnaround point where people start their cruises here or they end their cruises here. That means they're coming here a day before or a couple days before. They're eating at our restaurants. They're staying in our hotels. They're going out. They're adventuring in the city and our surrounding area as well. So they're spending more dollars supporting local jobs on the ground for Milwaukeeans. So that is important, and we want to work to make sure that we're building up more opportunities to retain that here in the city, because it's tourism. It's tourism that elevates Milwaukee's image. Again, it creates jobs, it boosts business, and it helps to pay the bills because, as many folks in this room know, we've got a 2% sales tax that was enacted at the beginning of this year. And those visitors are now contributing to local governments through those sales taxes. We're also investing in quality of life improvements in the city of Milwaukee. And so I want to call attention to a number of those quality of life improvements that we've made. So downtown, Val Phillips Plaza, across from the Convention Center, across from the Baird Center, celebrates a groundbreaking figure in our city's history and has really activated that space and has drawn people's eye to that spot. Not just for what's there, but for potentially future development in the future at that location. I think that's remarkable. Zillman Park down in Bayview, it provides an amenity amid a growing neighborhood. And if you've been down to Bayview neighborhood as of late, you see that that is a hot part of the city. Down on the south side in the Harbor District, we're moving forward with a great addition to the Riverwalk that is outside Komatsu's headquarters and manufacturing facility. Over on the east side, Ivanhoe Plaza, off of East North Avenue, is an opportunity to look at the public right-of-way as a location for more than just cars. which leads me to my next point, which is not only are we addressing the issue of reckless driving and mitigating that with some of the engineering changes that we've done on the streets, but we're also working to make sure that the roads are safer for all users of the roadway. It doesn't matter if you're behind the wheel of a vehicle. It doesn't matter if you're pushing a stroller, if you're in a wheelchair. It doesn't matter if you're on an electric scooter or on a bike. We're adding the infrastructure necessary to make sure that the roadway is safe for all users. And as was mentioned in that very funny video that we just saw, I know that Rotary, of course, is on board with Beeline Park along the Beer Line Trail. That project will continue to add more vitality to that neighborhood. So the city is supporting a number of projects like those, and not just like those either. We continue to invest in other areas too. Housing happens to be one of those areas. So I want to call attention to one in particular. Over on the north side of the city, in the Midtown neighborhood, there's the Midtown Home Ownership Initiative. We're putting millions of dollars into that effort through a developer-financed tax incremental district. It's a type of district that we have not tried before in the way that we're using it right now. We're partnering with several groups, including the CDA, the Community Development Alliance. We're partnering as well with Habitat for Humanity, the Group, to build dozens of new homes in that neighborhood. And these are going to be family homes, part of the north side again, in an area that needs new construction and new opportunities for housing. Innovation and flexibility, they're important to advancing the issue of housing that we have here in Milwaukee, particularly where we have insufficient housing to meet the needs of residents in our city. And my administration is taking a new look at how we support both low income, and not just low income, but also workforce housing needs that we have in the city. So I suspect that in the coming weeks, we'll announce some new criteria for city investment in these efforts. I know that a lot of folks are interested in the city budget, and I referenced that earlier about my budget from previous year, my budget from this year, and the support that we've had for the police department. The budget right now maintains service levels, but there is some belt tightening that's been happening as well. The 2% sales tax that I talked about just a moment ago has saved the city from this doomsday scenario. However, city government is not flush with cash. We don't, a lot of people, come to us and say, you got the sales tax in, now you got all the money in the world. That just is not the case. It's just not the case for the city. So the sales tax money is expressly dedicated to funding police officers and firefighters, along with fulfilling the city's pension obligations. So right now, the Common Council is reviewing my budget. There will be some changes, but frankly, there's not a lot of flexibility in the budget because we are just really that sort of strapped here. I mentioned that my birthday, November 5th, is on election day. So a significant part of my time these days is focus on just that, focus on the upcoming elections. In my job as mayor, I'm committed to a fair and accurate and transparent election for all people across our city. In fact, I want to see that for all people across our state and all people across our country. And so we know that there are going to be a lot of people who are watching Milwaukee. And we know, because we will require this, we always have required this in the city, that in Milwaukee, we will follow the law. At the same time, we encourage every eligible voter to participate, right? So we will follow the law as we always have, and we want for every single voter in every single neighborhood to cast their ballot legally. It had been my hope that before we got to this point, that before we got to these upcoming elections this fall, that the state legislature would have given all municipalities some additional flexibility to start processing absentee and early votes prior to Election Day. Now, it advanced in the Assembly, and I'm grateful for that. But unfortunately, that bill did not see the light of day in the Senate. So long after the polls close, Milwaukee is going to announce the results of tens of thousands of absentee as well as early votes. So I just need to remind people that there was a bipartisan effort in order to get this changed. And I don't think it's a secret to folks in here that I'm a Democrat. I wanted to see this change. Speaker Boss wanted to see this change, a Republican. Even Senator Ron Johnson, in the past at least, has advocated for this change. Unfortunately, it just was not able to pass the legislature this time around. So it's not some manipulated, concerted ballot dump. It's really the unfortunate reality of Wisconsin law. We just cannot do that. We cannot count the ballots beforehand, and so you'll see that. And so when folks are, coming around and saying, "Oh, there was a ballot dump and there's a conspiracy and Milwaukee is cheating and all that," no, what we're doing is following the state law, and unfortunately, that's where the state law leads us to today. Outside of my official duties, I'm actively supporting Democratic candidates, of course, for president, for Senate, as well as other offices. It was an honor if you guys tuned in. I know you guys tuned into the RNC because it was here. You tuned into the DNC just down the road in Chicago. I had the opportunity to speak there. It's been my honor to welcome Vice President Kamala Harris to Milwaukee in the many times that she has been here to our city, and I will continue to do that as long as she keeps coming here. Most importantly, I want our country to embrace a vision for the future. And that's what I believe that Tammy Baldwin and Kamala Harris have offered, not just for us in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin, but really, again, for the entire country. So irrespective of how you feel about the candidates, I want you all to vote. I want you to make sure that everyone eligible in your families votes as well. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell everybody to get up, to get out, and to go vote. This is too crucial of an election for anybody to stay on the sidelines. We need every single person in this room and beyond, all the folks that you know, all the folks that you touch, to please make sure that they both register and that they vote. Wisconsin is in an extraordinary position to decide who the next president of the United States will be. I said this months ago, and I believe this to be true. Whoever wins Wisconsin ultimately will win the White House. All right, so that's a lot of power in this room and in this city and in this state. Whoever wins Wisconsin will become the commander-in-chief, will become the 47th president of the United States. So we need everybody to be engaged, everybody to be involved. Which leads me then to some just final points. I know these times sometimes can seem scary and uncertain, but really I've got a lot of optimism. A lot of optimism about Milwaukee, a lot of optimism about the city, a lot of optimism about the future of our community. We're not just a city, but a region that is loaded with opportunity. I see our economy growing. I see our quality of life improving and on an upward trajectory. We are in this city and in this community, we're well situated with arts, with culture, with restaurants, with sports, with higher education, and unlike so many other parts of our country, we see it when we come into this building. We have access to abundant fresh water. That's not something that everybody around this country can say. So, in short, I think there are great, great things that are ahead for Milwaukee and for Wisconsin, and indeed for our country, if we all play our part. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. If you have a question for the mayor, you may line up behind me and use this microphone. As always, please keep your questions concise and topical. Please, no preambles.
That's my job.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being here today. My name is John Ward. When the RNC came here, I know that many foreign ambassadors came to Milwaukee, and I just had the privilege to bring a group of 13 European young leaders here to Milwaukee, and they're all very, very impressed with the city. What more can we do to connect Milwaukee to the world? And I'm speaking specifically to foreign governments.
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for it. I mean, I think part of that is working to make sure that they know about us. right? I mean, I think there are a number of cities in the United States that people are generally very familiar with, right? You got New York, you got LA, you got Chicago, and like it kind of bugs me that I got to say, hey, we're right above Chicago on the map, but we got to like sort of beat our chest a little bit and be proud about who we are, where we come from, and where our home is. And so some of that is not being so meek and mild mannered as we tend to be here in Milwaukee. Like that's good enough, that's well enough. No, it's not good enough. Like let's scream a little bit. Let's talk about how great we are. And I think with that comes some additional notoriety. I think just on a note, when Milwaukee Tool was coming to Milwaukee, or was looking at having the opportunity to grow some jobs in Milwaukee. There were some individuals, this is when I was council president at the time, who thought it's fine for them to just generally be in the region. It's okay for them to be in Menominee Falls or Iguanago or somewhere else. I said, hell no. It is not good enough for them to be in the region. They need to be in the city of Milwaukee. They need to be here. We need to beat our chest about that. And right now, right, they're down the road. They're in the city in a beautiful building. And they just hosted, I think for the second or third year in a row, another program that I was able to work with Milwaukee Public Schools in establishing, which is exposing kids in Milwaukee to opportunities in the construction trades. Right? We want manufacturing to be back, more jobs that way, and I'm all about that. I want to see that. But manufacturing is not king like it once was here. And so there are great opportunities in the trades, and I want more young people to be exposed to those things. Because when they're exposed to those things, they have stability in their lives, then a lot of the negative stuff that we talk about, I think they go away. But that doesn't happen unless we start beating our chest a little bit. So that's just an example about how we secured not just a business and provided more opportunities for young people. I think the same is true about making sure that our friends in Europe and other places around the world know about our city.
What's going on, Chevy?
How you doing, Mr. Carter?
Happy early birthday.
It will be a happy birthday, right?
Yeah. So my question is, you and County Executive Crowley have done a lot of work engaging the state towards initiatives to benefit Milwaukee. Can you talk more about your experiences now after getting something successful off the ground? Can you talk more about the relationship with the state and how you are going to use these wins to leverage larger wins?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. When I first came into office, and it seems like it's sort of, maybe it's just my luck. I don't know. It seems like when I came into office, there was all this talk, for many, many years about Milwaukee going to go off a fiscal cliff, and not just the city, but the county as well. And it had to be resolved right now. And that was no joke. Like that was a true story. If we hadn't gotten that done, myself, the county exec, all of our other partners, if we hadn't gotten that done, we'd have been in a situation where I wouldn't be able to add police officers, or I wouldn't be able to put the funds into growing the number of police officers. We would have had to cut like half of the police in Milwaukee. We would have been in a position where we're not opening firehouses that were shuttered in previous years like we're doing right now. We would have been in a position where we had to cut a quarter of all the firefighters in Milwaukee. We wouldn't be in a position where we're able to expand the library to have Sunday hours like what happened recently. We would have been in a position where those libraries would have virtually all had to been shuttered. We wouldn't have been in a position where we can have stability for these other city workers who provide services each and every single day. We would have had to cut 400 additional workers at least, very likely. So I'm very proud of the work that we did with Act 12, bringing about the changes that we're reaping the benefits of now. I think that for us moving forward, because we were there so much and will continue to be there so much in the years ahead, it presents us an opportunity where we're not these unknown agents anymore. Right? We've developed those relationships, and so I'm hopeful that we'll see even more partnership out of the legislature. Case in point, after Act 12 happened, Myself, I've gone up and testified on a number of bills to address the issue around reckless driving. Those bills have passed, helping us to do some of the work that I referenced earlier that Kent Laverne, who will be our next district attorney, is supporting. Some of the bipartisan work we were able to get done after Act 12 allowed for more investment to happen to support kids who want to take driver's education. When I was a kid, driver's education, it was expensive. It was like $300, but you could still do it. These days, kids don't have that sort of opportunity. So we work with the state, again, in a bipartisan way, in order to make sure more kids had that sort of opportunity. So we'll continue to build on the successes of Act 12 to deliver more for residents of Milwaukee.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
during COVID, the city's policies kind of created a great kind of dividing line between the city of Milwaukee and the suburbs. We had policies that restricted people's ability to patronize restaurants and bars and establishments, while the outlying suburbs were wide open. Now, as we've moved on from the pandemic, what are you doing and what is the city doing to reconnect with the suburbs? A lot of suburbanites that we see coming into the city are concerned about safety, as you've addressed, safety and security, but also our parking policies, later meter times, limitations on parking, and just generally a feeling that the suburbs don't look at Milwaukee the way that they did pre-pandemic.
Don't look at Milwaukee the same. How did they look at Milwaukee pre-pandemic?
I think a lot of people from the suburbs came here regularly just to experience the city for what it is, a place of entertainment, hospitality, bigger and better things than you would find in the suburbs. I get feedback. My family still operates hospitality operations in the suburbs, and when I go to visit them, I get comments from people saying, we don't go downtown anymore. Is it safe downtown? Or they discuss the later meter times being confusing, people getting tickets. These things seem trivial, but when people come here and they experience these things, it has a kind of a note of negativity.
Sure. So I guess the question is, what are we doing to make sure that we are developing relationships with the suburbs, making sure the city is open for business wherever it comes from, including suburban residents?
To that end, but also, I guess, positioning ourselves so that we are sending the message that Milwaukee is safe. And that's partially a media item, sure. But I think we need to find a way to encourage people. We can't exist as an island with just our city population. We need the suburbs. We need people to be able to drive into our city, park easily, and have uncomplicated experiences in our city.
Sure. Okay. So I guess I can touch on a couple of those. So as it relates to safety, again, I'm actually growing the police department. Now we have a struggle nationally with finding the bodies for recruitment, but we are making every single solitary effort. If folks are concerned about safety and just the sheer number of police officers, that's exactly what we're doing. Again, 3 classes, the maximum that we can possibly produce, 65 recruits in each class, the funding for that at least, the maximum that we possibly can produce. So we're making those investments in the city as it relates to the issue of reckless driving, which, by the way, we have an issue with here, and we've been making tens of millions of dollars worth of investment to curb that activity, and we're seeing successes where we've made those sort of improvements. I know that it's not just a City of Milwaukee concern; it's a concern in the suburban communities as well. West Allis comes to mind where that has been an issue. As it relates to other things in terms of parking and things like that, we have to work to make sure that we have enough resources to fund the things that people want to do, right? And so as it relates to parking, right, if we want to make sure that folks are able to come down and enjoy nightlife, entertainment, plays and things like that, be able to get into restaurants, then we have to find ways to get people to move around so more people can come down. Unfortunately, we've had an experience where individuals will sit in a parking spot for all day, which if they're sitting there all day, then that doesn't present an opportunity for somebody else to come down. So we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to experience and enjoy the city. And so we're experimenting with all these things and trying to come into the same sort of standard as some of our peer cities around the country are doing too. Many times we find ourselves to be behind the eight ball with where other even comparable cities are doing, and there's catch up that we have to do in Milwaukee, and those are some of the things we're working to do too.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
Hi.
Milwaukee continues to top the list of the most segregated cities in the country very often. I'd love to hear what your administration and its partners are doing to help change that perception and that reality, as well as what we as people living and working in Milwaukee can do to break down those barriers.
Sure, that's a great question. To address that issue, I think it's important for us to grow family support and jobs in Milwaukee. Folks shouldn't feel that they are, for lack of a better term, trapped, in a neighborhood, or they can't rent a place that or they can't rent a place that is not, a subpar place in their estimation. I want for people to have opportunities to get out, to go to different areas of the city, to live in different neighborhoods. And so there are a number of things that we can do and should do. One of those things, again, is to improve safety, as we were just discussing. Another one is working to make sure we're growing good paying jobs. And now there are going to be some white collar jobs with Milwaukee Tool and with Pfizer that I talked about, but everybody's not going to go to college. That's why it's important to make sure that young people, especially, have the opportunity and the knowledge base to know that there are great family supporting careers in the trades. I mean, had I known, that you could get, such a great, job in the trades, I mean, maybe I'd still be mayor. Maybe I'd be a carpenter. I don't know. But we have to expose young people to those sort of opportunities. And that's exactly what we're doing, because when they have that stability and they have more economic freedom, then they're able to move around a bit and to bust up the issue of segregation that you're talking about. Another thing that I think is important to tackle this, I mean, I touched on this here, is working to make sure that the opportunities for housing are plentiful in Milwaukee. And so that's why we've been working on policies in my administration to make sure that we are able to produce more workforce housing in Milwaukee, in addition to affordable housing, which we do very well, but to have more workforce housing in the city. And costs are something that people are concerned about. That's why in my administration, we've been championing this growing Milwaukee plan, this change in zoning. Milwaukee, so everybody knows that we have mayors for a long time in Milwaukee, right? Everybody gets that. And I'm not trying to say that I'm looking to break anybody's record or anything like that. But I will tell you, we haven't had a significant zoning change in Milwaukee since John Norquist was mayor, right? John Norquist. And we have mayors again for a long time here. So that tells you how long ago that was. And so our plan, the Grow Milwaukee plan, will help to grow the number of units that we have in Milwaukee. And if you have more units, if you have more housing supply, if you have more diversity of housing, then it reduces costs for everybody. And if costs are reduced and people are able to get into what they perceive to be more desirable neighborhoods, that also helps to bust up the issue around segregation. So there are a number of things that we can do and that we should do in Milwaukee, and we're leading those efforts in my administration. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Afternoon.
I think the last time you were here, I closed out with a limerick.
I recall.
I'm not going today. I was standing back there thinking there are a lot of great rhymes with 38. I should have come up with something. But I have a question. I'm excited about a lot of the great development projects that are happening in Milwaukee. I think everybody is. But the saddest, most dismal public space in the city of Milwaukee is right in the heart of the city. It's MacArthur Square, and it's been sad and dismal for decades, as long as I've worked in and around the area. I'm assuming that may be county land. It's the land between the courthouse and all the other buildings down there, but that the city must have some role it could play. And with the public museum leaving, is there an opportunity to reimagine that area and that space and bring something that will make it not so dismal?
Well, I agree with you. My dad told me that when he was a kid, that was this sort of magical sort of civic space MacArthur Square was. And I would love to see it get back to that sort of level of reverence in our community. And, our plans that I just discussed in terms of our zoning update plans, I think it presents opportunities for more improvements at MacArthur Square and so many other places around the city. If you look, though, at our plan, our partnership plan with downtown Milwaukee Bid 21, the downtown plan, it does touch on some improvements for MacArthur Square. So I would recommend taking a peek at that. And if you look at what the plan was, the 2010 plan, we've accomplished a number of those things over the course of the last 14 years or so. So now the plan is connecting Milwaukee to 2040 downtown plan. There are a number of things as it relates to MacArthur Square specifically with housing and entertainment and sports and things like that, that I would love to see come to fruition as well. But these things take time. These things take time. I mean, as you mentioned, there's the safety building that I know has been a priority for Milwaukee County, that the county executive has talked about needing some additional investment, and because that building is just subpar, things change. You mentioned the museum that's moving, and it's not just the museum; it's also the state office building that's here. That they're going to eventually move at some point, I believe, to 27th in Wisconsin, which presents another opportunity in that general area. There's a lot that can happen over, in, and around MacArthur Square. And look, we've been pro-business and pro-development in my administration, and when those opportunities come available, we certainly will jump on them and find opportunities to develop.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson.
Thank you.